Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm 20. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm 23, and I'm from Kent, England, and I'm a sales consultant. So in the summer of 2015, I cycled across the Sahara Desert and into the African Sahel, started in Morocco and ending in Senegal. The best moments were mostly in my sleep, to be honest. You'd find yourself just begging for more time in the dream, but my dreams would just taunt me near the end of the night, because as you would forget you're in the desert, and because you're in the dream, and there's some element would remind you of that you're actually dreaming and you are in the desert, and then you wake up, and that was quite demoralising, I think. But whilst awake, my favourite moment was without doubt standing on this like rocky, slaty dune kind of area. It was like near the border of Mauritania, and I would climb up there. It was during just after sunset, in the last moments of sunset, just after the vanilla sky had passed and the sky was looking a bit magenta purple. So I climbed up there, and all I could see for miles and miles was just more dunes in every direction, more like mini rock. It was mini rock dune, more miles of mini, I don't know, there were just more miles of rock and sand dunes. And that was just awe-inspiring. It was like standing inside like a Picasso painting. It's just like you were standing there, time was frozen for just a moment, for a few minutes, and you just look around and just think, wow, the level of detail was insane. And it was a very special moment, without doubt. That's when I shouted, "I'm king of the world." Like, that phrase you can only say when you are truly feeling it in your heart. If you don't feel it in your heart, all that will come out is a whimper. Other than that, there are obviously some great moments cycling with the wind behind me, and like cycling over like rock. You always gotta be responsive when cycling over rock compared to a road. I avoided cycling over roads because I preferred to cycle over like rocks, because you have to be more responsive and you have to be assertive. You have to like find the fastest route, because you want to avoid any patches of sand which will slow you down, and stick to the rock which is faster. And I would just, whilst I was cycling, I would just listen to as much music as I could. Tears for Fears, Simple Minds, Radiohead, just the normal stuff. Okay, so my worst moments were, without doubt, cycling into the wind for, I think, 2 days on end. It took me 2 days just to cover about 40 kilometres, which is very slow, very demoralising as well. I was ill for quite a few days in the Sahara as well. It was tough. Even in the shade, in Mauritania, being in the shade was no help at all, because the wind would just blow the warm air into your tent like a fan oven. It was unbelievably hot. It was absolute hell. I had many troubles with my bikes as well. I had 2 bikes in total. The first one was a road bike. The second one was more of a mountain bike. The first one kept getting punctures, so I dashed that bike away pretty quickly. On both my bikes, my pedals would just seem to break. I don't know why, but they were just weak at that point. Maybe because they were second hand, they were probably overused, and after buying the bike, it took maybe a day or 2 days for the pedals to break on each one. But I also had to drink urine to stay hydrated. It's not like a great survival technique, but you got to do what you have to do to keep going. Maybe it helps more mentally, just to have a bit of liquid inside you, even though it's very salty, though it is sterile to drink as long as you drink it reasonably quickly after it left your body. The biggest challenge was definitely finding food and liquid intake when there was just none around. When there were no villages in sight, or if I hadn't seen a village in a while, then I had no hope to purchase any food. So what I had to do, basically, I had to risk catching parasites by eating raw lizards, which meant I could use their blood to hydrate me in part as well. Lizards are like fish because they're cold-blooded, which means they have much less of the bacteria present in warm-blooded animals, like mammals essentially. So I had to do that. That is a tip I saw from watching a Bear Grylls video maybe a day or two before I actually embarked on my adventure. Also, I spent about 6 months preparing and training for this adventure. I was watching Bear Grylls videos, Ray Mears videos, watching all kinds of survival TV shows on Netflix, like the Man and the Wife one, or there's a two-man survival show as well. I would also study maps, and I'd always cycle uphill so I could build up my legs in a short amount of time, because before this adventure I hadn't cycled since I was a kid, maybe when I was 12. That's literally not having been on a bike at all for like about 10 years or so. So yeah, I had to build up my legs to as strong as I could. I could study maps and do as much research about the Sahara until I was blue in the face, but it can only take you so far until you realise there is absolutely nothing to do but to actually do it. I also became very sick in the Sahara for about 5 days. I woke up near naked, like in the desert at some point, because I just couldn't get into my tent, and I was so hot. I was like sweating, but also cold at the same time. It was not nice. My stomach was in turns. I was throwing up out of both ends. I was throwing up at both ends. The military police found me by like the side of like a track or a road, and they had to take me to the medics because I was not feeling good, and yeah. So I did spend quite a bit. I did spend quite a bit of time looking for snakes, but one of the times when I wasn't looking for snakes, I actually ended up getting bitten by a snake. So I had to think quickly. So what I did, I took out my Stanley knife. I had to cut 2 small X's into the bite punctures and try to suck the venom out. It was a rusty Stanley knife as well, which wasn't good because it's more likely to give you an infection from outside. I spent some time looking for snakes, but I spent quite a bit of time looking for snakes as I wanted to see snakes. I've seen snakes before in the Alps. I think 2 snakes in the Alps I've seen next to rivers. I think they're possibly water snakes. I spent some time looking for snakes in the Sahara Desert. I've seen snakes before, like in the Alps. There were a couple of snakes near rivers on the banks, and I thought, hey, it's the Sahara Desert, I want to see plenty of snakes as well. So I was looking for some. And then in a time when I wasn't even looking for any, I was actually bitten by one. So I had to think as quick as I could. My adrenaline was racing, and I had to cut 2 small X's into the puncture marks so I could try to suck the venom out using my mouth. I was using a rusty Stanley knife, which I'd use to kill lizards, I'd use to cut food open. It was rusty, it wasn't stainless steel, it brought a high risk of me catching an infection, but luckily I did not catch an infection from it, which I'm obviously happy about. The advice of cutting into your X's into your leg when you've been bitten by a snake, I knew it was outdated before I even tried to do it, because I'd read it online. They used to do it in cowboy movies, and it's been ruled by the medical profession as not advisable, because you could end up doing more damage to yourself than the snake bite had already done. But there was no help. There could have been no help for miles and miles and miles and miles. If I did nothing, I just could not do nothing at all. I had to at least try, even if there's only a 10% chance of it working. I had to do something. But obviously it was a dry bite, but you don't know at the time. Basically, a snake doesn't always inject venom into your skin. I think it might be 70-30 or 60-40% chance of them sticking venom into your skin, because obviously I'm a large mammal. The snake is not going to waste venom on a mammal it cannot wrap its mouth around. It was very uncomfortable putting the dirty blade into my flesh. It was like performing like kind of surgery on yourself, in a sense. You're slowly putting, it's weird, it's like there's a disconnect between your mind and your body, where you're putting it in and you're just rooting around, and it's so uncomfortable, and you're doing it slowly, because you can cut yourself accidentally a lot deeper, but because I was doing it slowly and methodically, it felt very uncomfortable, really painful. Like I was just digging around. It was not nice. It was kind of like a case of the remedy feeling worse than the ailment. But it was obviously a venomous bite snake, because it had 2 puncture marks, not like a whole group of teeth. It was just 2, which means it has fangs, which means it's venomous. If the snake, I don't know if the snake injected any venom, or maybe none at all, then the snake either injected no venom or barely any at all, or we would likely be having a much different conversation, if any at all. But you never know what happens. I never knew what kind of bite it could have been at the time. So, you know, happy to be here. I was kicked out of a couple of military zones, because basically the Sahara Desert is just littered with disputed borders. On the left-hand side, you've got Morocco claiming the territory. On the right-hand side, you've got Algeria. So if you go too far east, you're going to hit the disputed border, and the military will be there, and you'll get in a bit of trouble. They were actually really nice about it, though. They weren't like, they didn't pull guns or anything on me. They had guns, but they didn't pull them. The military were actually very nice. They all had guns, but never at one point were they ever pointed at me. Never at one point did I feel threatened. They actually gave me food and water as well, so they were very nice. So no complaints there, really. But when you're in your 20s and you're an adult cycling across the world's largest hot desert, when people in their